And then we have July 1943. And July 1943 changes the whole story. Mussolini is sent to jail by the king. We have an interperiod of extremely confusing period, the Badoglio period of 45 days, in which Italy officially is still allied with Nazi Germany, but behind the scene is trying to sign a ceasefire with the Allies. So it's clearly switching parts, but officially they're still fighting side by side with Nazi Germany. And in this, it's fascinating. In the diaries of Jews, you read that the Jews think that that's it. That's the end of fascism. We are, again, equal citizen. But that's not true. The anti-Semitic legislation is still going on, is still active. So the feeling that, okay, we are now over this terrible period, this 5 years of suffering, it's incorrect. And then you have, at the end of these 45 days, you have the 8th of September 1943, Nazi Germany invades Italy officially after Badoglio announces the ceasefire with the Allies. And all of a sudden you have a situation which is, I think, unique, because on one hand you have southern Italy is liberated by the Allies. So the Allies are in Italy, they are present. And Nazi Germany is in Italy, takes over, releases Mussolini from jail, and then you have the establishment of the Salò Republic. And so Mussolini is now the head of the Salò Republic, a new fascist republic, of course. The king escaped to the south with Badoglio, so it's not a monarchy anymore. You have this new state, very unclear at the beginning. Nobody really understands what it is. And again, you have this myth of the Salò Republic being a puppet regime. So still today, you will hear many people telling you, well, that was not a serious thing. They were a puppet regime. They were just obeying the orders, following the German initiative. They did not have any free will. And this is incorrect. Research has proven it beyond any doubt. The Salò Republic has a clear intention to intensify the anti-Semitic legislation. And here is the question of that competition that we saw in the previous period as operating on behalf of the Jews. And here it's exactly the opposite. Because now you have Nazi Germany and Salò, fascist Italy, working against each other, and basically, and trying to, let's see who's going to get the Jews first, you on me. And the interests are various here. I mean, there is no doubt that the economical interest is one of the major ones, because the person that will take the Jews will also have a say about the property, Jewish property, and there is no doubt that fascist Italy wants the Jewish property. So there is, this competition has different interests that we cannot analyze them here in depth, but it's extremely interesting. Now, again, it's commonly believed that in this stage of 1943-1945, the Germans are the one persecuting the Jews, sending them to Auschwitz to their death, while the Italians are the one saving the Jews. And this is, again, extremely incorrect. It's false. We have no doubt that there is a clear intention not to collaborate. I don't like the word collaborating. I think participating is much more correct. In participating in the persecution of the Jews, in the deportation of the Jews to extermination. There is no doubt that Mussolini and all the entourage knew exactly what does it mean to arrest the Jews and give them to the hand them over to the Germans. No one doubted about the end station of the train. So we know that there was a clear intention of getting rid of the Jews. We saw that the intention was already there in 1940, only not through destruction. I'm not saying that the Italian or Mussolini wanted to kill all the Jews. I don't think that we have a basis to say that yet. But there is no doubt that they didn't have any problem in taking an active part in this process for their different reasons. I also would like to point out one point that quite often is we don't think about it. Fascist Italy did not do any division between Italian Jews and foreign Jews. A division, a clear division that we saw, for example, in Vichy France. And this is extremely interesting. For Mussolini, in 1943, there was no division. Arresting the Jews in 1943 meant to arrest Italian Jews, Italian citizen Jews, and foreign Jews as well. So here again, it's a point that we should ponder more. I don't think that historiography gave too much attention to this, but I think it's worth it to analyze it further. Now, if I think about this period of 1943-1945, so we have the Germans trying to arrest all the Jews in order to send them to extermination. We have the Italian that from November on participate and take the initiative to arrest the Jews and to confiscate all their property. And then we have the Italians and the Italian society. So which part the Italian society take in all this? Is the myth of the good Italians, the population that helps the Jews, is it true? Again, as most of the myth, it's incorrect. We must remember that the Italian population went under 5 years of indoctrination, of anti-Semitic indoctrination. This poison propaganda influenced a part of the population. And research that has been done on public opinion shows clearly that most of the Italians were apathetic. They didn't care really. And that's quite understandable. We are talking about a war. I mean, the picture is quite complex. And yet we cannot say that the Italian population was solidal to the Jews, helped the Jews. This is incorrect. As always, the truth is some kind of gray, not black nor white. We also must take into account the context, the very unique context of Italy, of a country where the deportation starts after a part of the country is already liberated. So it's a country where deportation are going on when in the south the Allies are there. So in a matter of a few kilometers, Jews are being deported, some of them even seeing the line, the frontier, the border, and the fight. So this is something that you don't have in other countries. This is an extremely important factor when you analyze the survival chances in Italy versus in other countries. Again, I'm not suggesting to undermine the activity of Righteous Among the Nations or of other Italians who rescue Jews. That's totally not my intention. I only say that we must take all the factors into account when we try to analyze this complex reality of Italy in 1943-1945, and when we analyze, for example, the rate of rescue versus the rate of extermination. Many people tell me, well, in Italy only 8,000 Jews were deported to Auschwitz. So it's not such a big number. And this is terrible for me to hear. First of all, the number of Jews living in Italy at the time was not so high. So when we talk about the percentage of Jews that were deported, we are very close to the percentage of the Jews in France that were deported, meaning around 20% Jews were deported, which is not so low. It is much lower than other countries of East or even Holland, but yet it is not. It is a very high number of Jews that were deported despite the fact that the Allies were already liberating Italy, despite the fact that the German invasion was fairly short comparing to other countries, at least in some areas like Rome, Florence, etc. And despite many other factors that must be taken into this consideration of the whole picture. If I summarize my ideas, I would like to suggest a more complex approach to fascist Italy and the Jews. One that leave aside all the false perception and try to deal with a more complex situation of a fascist country that was clearly, first of all, totalitarian, which is never good. But with time, switched to a clear anti-Semitic policy. The 5 years between 38 to 43, in a way, enabled, eased the process of destruction, of annihilation of the second period of 1943-1945. It eased it from many points of view, logistically, practically. The list of Jews that were that the Germans received is definitely their way, their work of collecting, of arresting the Jews. So you have many aspects. And also from the point of view of, can we say that Italy was a better place? This is a question, an invalid question to me. I think that in Italy we have a very harsh situation. Jews suffered already in 1938, 1943. And in the second period, it's true, many Jews were saved. Jews that were saved, they were saved thanks to many good Italians that helped, that rescued them. And the place of those righteous among the nation must be kept in our memory and have a very clear place of honor. And nevertheless, we cannot ignore all the other aspects, all the denunciations, and we are talking about thousands of cases of denunciations, thanks to which Jews were arrested and sent to death camps. The collaboration of the Italian population, the collaboration of the Italian bureaucracy with all the stages. And I think that if we can reach a more honest, a more open and complex view of fascist Italy, I think we will all benefit from it, because we will be able to face this tragic period of history of the Jewish community and of Italy, and understand much better the reality of the period, the different factors that influence in each way, and they brought, at the end of the war, a Jewish community that was devastated, that thousands of their members have been killed, thousands of their members have escaped the country. The Jewish community at the end of the war was extremely impoverished and had to start in a very complex and hard process of starting again, a new start, of evaluation of a question, of very hard question of who am I, identity question, which in part even today are still existing in the Jewish community in Italy.